Jake Lawson had always believed that love wasn't about possession, it was about trust. He wasn't the kind of boyfriend who demanded constant check-ins or proof of loyalty. That wasn't who he was. Love, to him, meant freedom, the kind that allowed two people to grow alongside each other, not tethered but still connected. He had always given Emily her space, never prying into her life beyond what she chose to share. That was what love was supposed to be, wasn't it? Emily had always been independent. She had her own life, her own circle of friends, her own ambitions. It was one of the things that had drawn him to her in the first place. The way she never relied on him in an unhealthy way, never made him feel like he had control of their relationship. 3 years together, and she had never given him a reason to doubt her. Not once. So when she mentioned visiting her parents for the weekend, he didn't think twice about it. She stood in their shared apartment, folding a few shirts into her overnight bag, chatting casually about her mother's latest garden project and how her father had been grumbling about a leaky faucet. Jake sat on the bed, watching her with a lazy smile, soaking in the simplicity of the moment. "Sounds like your dad might finally cave and call a plumber," Jake teased. Emily smirked, rolling her eyes. "You don't know my dad. He'd rather let the house flood than admit defeat." Jake chuckled, pushing himself up from the bed. He walked toward her and wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Have a good trip, and tell them I said hi." She turned in his arms, pressing a soft kiss to his lips. "I will. I'll call you later. Okay." "Drive safe," he murmured, watching as she slung a bag over her shoulder and headed for the door. It was such a normal moment, so routine, that Jake didn't even give it a second thought. He had no idea that this simple goodbye would be the last time he looked at her the same way. The next evening, Jake lounged on the couch, idly scrolling through his phone. Emily had texted him early in the day, a sweet, familiar message. "Had lunch with Mom and Dad. We miss you. Wish you were here." He had smiled when he saw it, warmth blooming in his chest at the thought of her. Now, lost in his phone, he was absent-mindedly sifting through old messages, looking for a link a friend had sent him weeks ago. He tapped open a chat with one of Emily's close friends, a conversation from months ago when they had planned a surprise birthday party for her. He wasn't looking for anything in particular, just skimming. And then he saw it, a message from Emily. Not a text, not a picture, a location pin, his brow furrowed in confusion. His first thought was that it was nothing. Maybe Emily had sent her location to her friend for some harmless reason. Maybe she was asking for directions. But why would she need directions to her parents' house? His heart skipped a beat, a strange, uneasy feeling creeping into his chest. His fingers moved on their own, tapping the pin. The map loaded. The location zoomed in. His stomach twisted. The pin wasn't anywhere near her parents' house. It was somewhere else entirely. Jake stared at the screen, his pulse thundering in his ears. A hotel. Not just any hotel, but one in a completely different part of the city, miles away from where her parents lived. His mind scrambled for an explanation, some rational, innocent reason for this. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe she had stopped there for something. Maybe. But deep down, a sickening realization was already settling in his gut. There was only one reason someone lied about where they were and ended up in a hotel. Unless she wasn't alone. His fingers hovered over the screen, his mind racing through 1,000 possibilities, each one more painful than the last. He wanted to believe there was another answer. He needed to believe it. But the cold, unchanging glow of his phone screen told him otherwise. Emily had lied to him, and now he was left with a choice. Did he call her, confront her, demand the truth? Or did he need to see it with his own eyes? Jake sat in silence, his phone still glowing in his palm, the pin on the map an accusation he couldn't ignore. Unchanging, undeniable. A hotel, a place she had no reason to be. A place where she had no reason to lie, unless she had something to hide. His mind reeled, trying to piece together a cool puzzle he had never realized he was part of. And suddenly, memories started surfacing. Moments he had brushed aside, ignored, justified. The times she had been too busy to talk when visiting her parents. The times she silenced a notification a little too quickly. The sudden increase in weekend trips, always urgent, always last minute. The way she held her phone, gripping it like a lifeline, never leaving it unattended. Jake had trusted her blindly, never questioning the small, seemingly insignificant things. But now those things felt enormous, like cracks in a foundation he hadn't noticed until the house was already collapsing around him. Had she ever really loved him, or had he been nothing more than a safety net? A comfortable place to land while she lived a secret life behind his back? The thought sliced through Jake like a knife, sharp and unforgiving, leaving behind a wound he wasn't sure would ever heal. His hands trembled as he unlocked his phone again, desperate for answers, for something, anything, that would make sense of this. His eyes scanned through their messages, reading them now in a different light. The affectionate words, the reassurances, the casual I love yous, each one felt tainted, a script carefully crafted to keep him blind. He clicked on her call log, his stomach twisting into something dark and cold. There were numbers he didn't recognize. Repeated calls. Frequent. Always before and after her supposed trips. How had he never noticed this before? His blood ran cold. The truth was staring him in the face, undeniable. Yet some part of him still fought against it, clinging to the possibility that this was all just a misunderstanding. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself, trying to suppress the rising wave of anger and heartbreak. He needed to hear it from her. His fingers hovered over her contact before finally pressing call. Once, twice, 3 times. Voicemail. His jaw clenched. A few seconds later, he tried again. Still nothing. His pulse pounded, his mind racing. Was she ignoring him? Had she seen his name flash on the screen and hesitated, weighing whether to answer? His hands moved on their own as he typed out a message. How's your trip? Miss you. It was bait. A trap. A test to see if she would lie to him directly. His phone buzzed almost instantly. Miss you too. Just watching a movie with Mom and Dad. Can't wait to see you soon. Jake stared at the screen, his heart a war drum in his chest. She had lied, not hesitated, not faltered, not even taken a moment to craft a better excuse. The lie came effortlessly, smoothly, as if she had done it 1,000 times before. A perfect, confident betrayal. He felt sick. His grip on the phone tightened, his knuckles going white as rage and devastation crashed into him all at once. He had 2 choices. Pretend he didn't know, carry on as if nothing had changed, let her come back to him with the same smile, the same soft kisses, the same whispered lies. Or he could face her, go to the hotel, catch her in the act. The idea of seeing it with his own eyes made his stomach churn, but the alternative, living in denial, was even worse. His decision was made. He grabbed his keys. The drive to the hotel was a blur. Jake barely registered the streetlights flashing past, the headlights of cars merging onto the highway, the steady hum of the engine beneath his hands. His mind was elsewhere, trapped in an endless loop of memories, every moment he had shared with Emily, every whispered I love you that now fell hollow. By the time he pulled into the hotel parking lot, his hands were shaking. He sat there for a moment, gripping the wheel, trying to prepare himself for what he was about to see. Did he go in? Did he demand answers? Or was the betrayal itself already enough? His heart pounded as he reached for his phone, opening the location pin again. It was still there, still active. She was inside. Jake stepped out of the car, his breath unsteady, his legs heavy as he walked toward the entrance. The hotel lobby was warm and well-lit, filled with a quiet murmur of guests checking in and out. The receptionist barely glanced at him as he passed. The elevator doors slid open, inviting him inside. Each floor he ascended felt like a countdown to the end of something he had once believed was unbreakable. Ding! The doors opened. Jake stepped out. His eyes scanned the numbers on the doors as he moved down the hallway, his footsteps muffled against the plush carpet. Each step fell heavier than the last. And then he found it. Room 312. The door was slightly ajar, just enough for him to hear the muffled sound of laughter inside. A man's voice. Emily's voice. Jake's heart stopped. His fingers curled into fists at his sides. For a brief moment, he considered knocking, considered bursting in and demanding an explanation. But there was no explanation that could undo this. No excuse that could erase what she had done. He could already see it in his mind. The crumpled sheets, the discarded clothes, the undeniable proof of a betrayal. Jake took a step back. The pain in his chest was suffocating, pressing against his ribs like a vice, but with it came a cold, bitter realization. He didn't need to see it. He didn't need to catch her in the act. She had already made her choice. And now, he had to make his. Jake didn't remember walking back to his car. He didn't remember driving home or even unlocking the door to their apartment. Everything felt like a haze, a blur of heartbreak and numbness. But by the time he sat down on the edge of their bed, the reality of it all crashed down on him like a tidal wave. Emily had betrayed him. Not just once. Not just in a fleeting moment of weakness, but over time. Deception layered upon deception, lies spun so smoothly that he had never suspected a thing. And the worst part? It wasn't just about losing her. It was about losing himself. The version of him that had believed in love. The version of him that had trusted without hesitation. How had he never seen it coming? Jake looked around the room they had shared. The framed pictures, the little remnants of her still scattered across the apartment. It was all a lie. Their love, their future, their promises. None of it had ever been real. He let out a shaky breath, running a hand through his hair. He could call her, confront her, let her know that he knew. But why? She had already thrown it all away. She had already chosen someone else. Jake reached for his phone, staring at that last message. Miss you too. Just watching a movie with Mom and Dad. His lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. He deleted the message. Then he deleted her number. And finally, he deleted her from his heart. Some betrayals can be forgiven. Some wounds heal. But some scars stay forever. And Jake knew, in that moment, that he would never trust love again.